Hey, beautiful people. My name is Damara West, and I am so excited that you have tuned in for a trauma and healing series centered around my book, Me Too, A Therapist's Journey to Heal, Find Liberation, and Joy, which will feature 12 episodes and include the practices that have been paramount to my healing and transformation as a complex childhood trauma survivor who has 8 out of 10 ACEs, which are also known as adverse childhood experiences. It is my hope these episodes will help you fully step into the healing and liberation that you seek so that you can rise to the level you desire in every area of your life. Today's episode will be centered on an abundance mindset, which played a central role in my trauma recovery and continues to be a powerful vehicle for me to continuously tap into joy, peace, financial prosperity, and simply attracting exactly what I want. As in the words of Amanda Owen, abundance is the energy of permission. The more you permit yourself the right to desire what you want, express gratitude for what you have, and be excited for whatever comes your way, the more abundance you are bound to receive. Research shows that practicing gratitude just 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week for at least 6 weeks can enhance mental wellness and possibly promote a lasting change in perspective. In fact, a review of 70 studies that included responses from more than 26,000 individuals found an association between higher levels of gratitude and lower levels of depression. Data has found that trauma survivors who embrace a growth mindset, which is directly linked to an abundance mindset, can more quickly reconstruct social bounds to reach individual agency, including but not limited to involving situations when one has left a violent, abusive relationship. Some studies demonstrate that individuals, including those who have experienced childhood adversity, who have a growth mindset, exhibit a weaker link between the number of stressful life events and symptoms of post-traumatic stress, anxiety, depression, substance use, poor academic performance, and non-suicidal self-injury compared to those with a fixed mindset. And lastly, one study explored how mindsets, particularly growth mindset, mediate the relationship between childhood maltreatment and resilience. Today, I'm delighted to have the one and only Tina Lifford with us to share her deep insight about abundance as a practice to create an unbound life for each and every one of us, especially trauma survivors. Tina Lifford, the CEO of the Inner Fitness Project, is a true champion of prioritizing inner fitness as a lifestyle choice. Tina believes that inner fitness is as important to mental well-being as exercise is to one's overall health. She is a graduate of the University of Santa Monica Spiritual Psychology Program and the Coaches Training Institute. She is also a licensed spiritual practitioner. Tina has created personal development workshops for the Walt Disney Company, GlaxoSmithKline, and Unilever. She has also provided private life coaching for more than 20 years. Tina, I am so glad that you are here with me today.
Damara, I thank you so much for inviting me. I love this conversation, and I am super excited that this conversation is growing, and it's growing with speed.
Yeah.
That just makes me very happy.
Yeah, well, it's in part, right, as a result of all the work that you've been doing for so many years. And I'm just so grateful that you are doing your part in the world to raise the conversation and to help people get to wellness as quickly as possible. So let's talk about what abundance means to you and what role it has played in strengthening your inner fitness. And I love that you call it inner fitness.
Yeah. So, it's a great question because I think you could ask 1,000 people their definition of abundance and you would get slightly different answers. Abundance to me is the ability to desire, the permission to, within oneself, to actually reach and ask yourself for what you want,
Mm,
and to believe that it is possible for your life, and to stand in a relationship with yourself and your higher power that says go.
mm, mm. That's such a beautiful definition, and I love how you broke it down. I use a principle that has come from years of being a student of abundance, and everything that you just broke down in your words, right, is just so beautiful because it helps us to appreciate all of the things that it takes to live in flow when it comes to abundance, right? It's one thing to ask, but if we believe we're not worthy of receiving, or we're not doing the work in alignment with what it is that we want, then we're going to be hard pressed to get what it is that we actively want. And so I love that permission word as well that you said, right? Because so often people are living well below what they could be. And we know that abundance is unbound, right? That we can go anywhere that we decide that we want to go as a result of conjuring it up in our mind and being
Yes.
willing to do the work of co-creation. So that was so beautiful.
Yeah. And in what you just said, the most important component to creating an abundant life is our relationship with ourselves.
Mm,
And people don't think about it like that. They think about abundance in terms of the job that's going to give them the money,
yeah.
or the talent that is going to get them there, or whatever. But our relationship, our internal relationship with ourselves, that says we are worthy enough to want and to ask and to receive, and then we matter enough to ourselves that we are willing to take an inward look and see how we might be in our way.
Mm,
And what we discover, be loving enough with ourselves to want to change that, to
yeah.
want to get out of our way. Because if we want to, we can.
Yes.
And it all starts with us.
Yeah. And I love the simplicity of that, right? I mean, I think that so often we might talk about change. I learned this early on as a therapist, but just because we talk about it, it doesn't mean that we're willing to do anything about it. And the discomfort of the change that we seek, right, that has to be more potent than the comfort that comes from staying exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So beautiful.
And quite honestly, when it comes to these ways of thinking, these mindsets, you don't know them if you haven't been taught them. So a level of resistance is natural, right? But what's important is that we have ownership and agency over wanting. And
Mm,
if we can want, then what does this beautiful thing of making the heart available. And when the heart becomes open or available or in that really important striving state, I like to always say that when you are striving, when you are reaching for something, your heart is open.
mm,
And it is that energy of receptivity, of willingness, of courage and curiosity that actually comes in and supports us moving into that next experience that provides more of the information that we need so that we can become more of who we want to be. And then it just keeps happening. It ripples like that. We
yeah.
want more, we are more available. It bumps into us in terms of conversations, a book, a realization, and then it opens us up and we realize that we can, and then we do want more.
Yeah. And that's why healing is so paramount, right? Because when we're harmed, right, the heart closes. And when we heal, the heart opens. And so I love that you've just named that when the heart is open, that really allows us to begin asking. It helps us to recognize that we actually do want more. We are worthy of receiving more. And so, again, just love the simplicity by which you describe all of this to make it really tangible for people to be able to hold on to.
Yeah.
So, you work on inner fitness, right? And you have described it as everything. And so, talk to us about what inner fitness is and how it became your life's quest.
Yeah. So inner fitness is being in a healthy relationship with your inner self.
Mhm,
And the inner self, everyone has an inner self. And up until now in our society and world, when we think of self, we think about that image that we see in the mirror.
mhm,
That is our physical being. But our possibility and our pain is actually housed within our inner self.
mm,
The thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and the actions and reactions that come from those. So you can dress up the outside all day long. You can live in the gym. You can buy the finest of clothes. But when it comes to your pain and your possibility, you can only exercise or transform, build or break down those things based upon your thoughts, your feelings, and beliefs. So
yeah.
the most important thing that you can do, that all of us can do for the rest of our lives, is to have a healthy relationship with that inner part of ourselves so that
Mm,
we have a understanding and a framework that helps us identify when the thoughts and the feelings are thoughts and feelings that will produce what we don't want
yeah.
versus the thoughts and the feelings and the beliefs that can move us towards what we do want and open our hearts to our inborn possibilities.
Mm,
When we realize that this self is chock full of goodness and um, flow and living a life that feels good, it's already waiting inside of us. So
yeah.
the question becomes, what must we do to create the doorway for what is inside, under the trauma,
Mhm,
under the disbelief, under the worry, doubt, and fear? What must we do? What can we do? What might we do? All of those questions lead you to a openness that allows the possibility of you connecting with that part of yourself and becoming in a conscious, developing a conscious relationship with yourself.
yeah. And we're going to talk about conscious co creation in a little bit. And there's just some things that I want to reflect back to you about what you shared. There's a mantra in the 40-day prosperity plan that says something to the effect of that source is the source, that no person, place, or circumstance is the source. And so oftentimes we meander through life as if life is just happening to us without this recognition that everything that is in our lives, we've actually brought in as a result of our thoughts. And because we have on average 60,000 thoughts per day, right? We have 60,000 chances to move us towards what we want, to keep us stuck, or to move us further away. And so I just really appreciate you outlining all of the external ways that we affirm self and we create a rich life. And if that were the answers, then we wouldn't have millionaires and billionaires taking their own lives, right? If money was really the answer, if persona was really the answer. And so I just appreciate this recognition that part of living well and doing so sustainably requires us to mine our thoughts over and over and over again, because that's really the jump off point, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that, some people hear the notion of my thoughts and feelings brought everything into my life. And when it comes to abuse in childhood, that's a hard idea sometimes to understand. And you talked earlier about mindset. So at the Inner Fitness Project, we try to keep things very simple, and a mindset that can be helpful when it comes to navigating the things that are in our lives. I'm going to give you two.
Mhm.
One mindset is really the reality of how life operates. And we break it down very simply.
Mhm.
This universe is creative. This universe, everything that exists was at one point just potential, unseen potential, and then acted upon, it became a thing, right?
Mhm.
And so when you understand that this universe is creative and that we are part of that creation, you understand that each one of us is a creative source.
Mhm.
And when you see that, then life actually becomes in its simplest form. Life being a creative force bumps into us as a creative force, and something is created.
Mhm.
How we respond to what is created is where we have agency.
Yes.
So you might have been born into this creative medium and bumped into a family and parenting that was chaotic and traumatic. You may or may not have called that in. I don't know enough about how it all starts. But
Mhm.
what I do know is that as a creative force, all that has bumped into us can actually become something else as we creatively and intentionally respond.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that you couldn't respond as a child.
Yeah.
You can respond now in ways that allow you to move forward powerfully.
Mm.
And if I might, so that's one mindset that lets you stop taking the things in life that happen to you personally. And actually, that one thing creates more abundance, because if you're not taking life personally, then you are taking life, you are allowing life, and you are building your belief and commitment that to the fact that you can make a difference in your own life, no matter what the circumstances are.
Yes.
That's empowering.
Mm.
And
Pure
then,
power.
yes, and then the other mindset that we offer that is very empowering. It takes engaging with it to unleash its power, but we offer that every single human being is innately creative,
Mhm.
innately resilient,
Yes.
innately empowered to choose how you respond,
Mhm.
and whole and worthy. We call it crewing up. So as you begin to trade the learned idea of yourself for this I mean, it's undeniable. You cannot challenge it. You
Yeah.
know, if you tell me, that one of those aspects doesn't seem real, we could, let's roll up our sleeves, because
Yeah.
if you come from a universe that is whole,
Hmm.
then you come here whole.
Yes.
And the fact that things happen, that life bumps into you, and you may not have had the tools or the understanding of yourself
Hmm.
to address that in the way you might have wanted to or needed to, or would have been best for your life back then, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You are innately creative enough to design and redesign your life, resilient enough to weather any storm, empowered to choose and re-choose and choose again. And mystically, that means it's given to you from something so much greater, mystically whole and undeniably worthy.
Yes.
So let's roll up our sleeves. Let's
Oh,
get to it.
I oftentimes say that abundance is the great equalizer, right? And everything that you just said, it completely embodies that, right? No one asked to be traumatized. And yet, when we do the work of healing, in part using an abundance mindset, we get back to our true essence, which are all the things that you just named that's available to all of us. And so, even though we've spent so much time trying to figure out what makes someone resilient, the reality is that the answers are right there. They're right at our fingertips, essentially. We are the answer.
It's inside.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
It's,
That was that was so, so good. So good.
it's
Okay.
inside.
So I appreciate that your bio centers around all things wellness. I'm going back just a little bit.
Mhm.
And yet, you have been an actress and a playwright since the 80s, starring in more than 50 shows. Oh my God, that just blew my mind. And actually, I'm watching Queen Sugar for like the thousandth time. It is one of my favorite shows, one of my most profound things that I take in on a fairly regular basis. And we know you as the beloved Aunt Vi. So, talk to us about the role manifestation has played in opening amazing doors to support your acting, your playwright ability, and your wellness career.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. So I'm going to tell you just two incidents that happened in my life that speak to listening.
Mm,
You know, the importance of having a relationship with ourselves. One of the benefits of that is that we begin to listen to ourselves. We begin to see ourselves as important enough to listen to, right? And I was, oh God, I was working as a publicist, which was the same as, a secretary. A publicist is an agent in a public relations career
mhm,
or office. And my boss just wanted me to be her protege.
mhm,
And I'm sitting at my desk typing on a typewriter, not a computer, on a typewriter. I'm typing, and all of a sudden I hear a voice, and it says, if you don't try this acting thing, you will be 40 and unhappy.
mm,
And I literally turned around to see who was talking to me. And I was in this room facing a white wall all by myself. But it was audible. I heard a voice and I heard those words.
mhm,
And so on my lunch hour, because I am intentional and I want to be in healthy relationship with myself, on my lunch hour, I went and got a magazine that for artists or actors that talked about plays and auditions that were being held around town. I found two auditions that I could go on within the next two Saturdays. I think I went on one of those auditions. I got the role,
Yeah.
and I I credit that moment, not just hearing, but responding,
Mm,
you
come
know,
on.
yeah. And the hearing, the voice would only speak to me in that way about acting because it lived in my, I'm going to show you, it lived in my journal,
Mm,
if people don't have a journal, you need a journal because your journal keeps you aligned with yourself.
yeah.
It is a place where you can write down what your desires are, what your struggles are, and what your hopes and a sense of possibility are. And it's mystical, but
Mm,
writing it down sort of organizes it in a way that you and your subconscious benefit from.
yeah.
So write it down. So that was one.
Mm-hmm.
The next was I I had written throughout my career in my journal, the things that I wanted in my career. And so in I think it was November of 2015, I wrote something that I had written a number of times before. I wrote, and it was probably 2 pages. I wrote, bottom line, that I wanted to be a respected, sought after actor in a critically acclaimed show, number 3 or 4 on the call sheet, and working in an incredible ensemble, and to bring something so undeniable to the table that in all of that talent, I still could rise to the top like cream.
Mm, mm,
It's all written just like that in my journal. And February of 2016, uh,
mm.
I had written it a number of times, but February of 2016, I am on a plane headed to New Orleans. I'm number 4 on the call sheet. The ensemble that I'm working with is incredible, but who the heck would have expected a 60-year-old character to become a breakout in the Hollywood way of things? That's just unheard of, you
Mm,
know? And so knowing what you want, and that was decades after I had heard that voice, and followed that voice to that audition. I have just been relentless or committed to the visions that live in me. Inner
yeah.
fitness, I have this, what is now the Inner Fitness Project. It started off as Totally Fabulous Woman, and then it moved into Waking Up Fabulous. And each one of those, that was like a 5 to 7 year venture,
Mhm.
before it fell into this deep place. And I had lived enough to embody everything that I talk about, so that it's not here, but every pore of my being is practiced,
Yes.
you know?
Ooh, there is so much that I want to say. So I knew when you described all the things that you wrote about in your journal that that had to be Queen Sugar. I knew it. And when I think about your character and really every single character on that show, it's like Aunt Vi was made just for you. Like, even as I'm sitting here talking to you right now, yes, of course, it's you, Tina.
Mm.
And there is something about the embodiment of that character that I could not even fathom anyone else playing it. You are Tina and Tina is Aunt Vi. And I could probably say that about every single character on the show. And one thing that I want to name here, and we are doing a segment on journaling for the very thing that you talked about. It's powerful. You named what you wanted long before it came your way. And even that moment of being in the office and hearing God, universe, source, creator's voice say to you, you were ready at that moment to go after it. I can't imagine that even 5 years before, and everything that you've done based on every iteration of your well being work prepared you for everything that you have. And so, one of the things that I tell people often is that God, universe, creator, source is never going to give you something until you're ready for it. Now, we're always being nudged to get there. God is always speaking to us. God is always presenting themselves to get us exactly to where we want to go, even if we have no awareness yet of the direction that we want to go. And so that was such a powerful story about the co-creation process and the waiting and the faith that it takes to be able to step in. And that was flow. Like you said, you were on the plane. You weren't, yes, you had asked for this, but you weren't looking for that specifically. But when it came your way, you knew it was everything that you wanted. And I imagine probably so much more.
You know, there's so much in our developing a relationship with ourselves, because when we develop a relationship with ourselves, you cannot be in alignment with yourself without having some awareness of something greater. I don't
Mm,
care what you call it. And so I love your phrase of God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it.
mhm,
Um, and and here's the thing. We get caught looking at ourselves in the mirror and thinking that's who we are.
mm,
This thing is so magnificent, this universe. We know this much, like a thimble's full of the information that actually propels this thing. And and so I say it like this. Everything that we see that our eyes can land on was in the invisible at one point. Imagine the amount of energy required to take something that has no form, allow it through our engagement with it to actually take some level of form,
mm,
and then to pull it from the invisible into present time reality.
mm,
Y'all,
mm, mm.
so when we get overwhelmed, or we feel like it's taking too much time, or there's so much that is being worked out.
Yeah.
And here's the cherry on top of my Queen Sugar story.
Mhm.
That role was meant for Oprah Winfrey. It was written for Oprah. Tina Lifford wasn't supposed to be up in there,
Come
not
on.
at all. But when you know that your source is not a walking form, when your source is the very universe, then you are left with the um, joy of focusing on what belongs to you, and it can't help but get to you.
Mm, mm. Somebody needs to put that on a shirt. And you just named the root of abundance, which is about an individualized pathway. And if we believe in abundance, we believe that there's enough for you and me and everyone, and that when we're ready, it's coming. And so we can write it down and we can leave it. We don't have to ponder on that thing. We don't have to worry about that thing. We can write it down. We can ask. There's so many ways that we are asking all the time. But once we make the ask, we can let it go and know that in time, as we do the inner fitness work, as you so beautifully describe in your efforts, we can be rest assured it's coming. It's coming in due time. Oh my gosh, that was so good, so good.
Well, okay, but I have to say, because it's a practice, right? And
Mhm.
so also, with everything that you've said, Tamara, w- we must be responsible for the stuff that comes our way that isn't so great,
Yes.
because we are creators. And
Mhm.
so how we are responding to our lives is creating. So
Yeah.
you don't have to take responsibility for, like I said earlier, like we said earlier, the trauma that comes into your life. But if you are a creator, you're always creating.
Yes.
And so, you know, to use your journal and to have these fantastic desires and ambitions and possibilities is a great starting point. But if you aren't paying attention to the other habituated stuff that tends to thwart that or retard its expression, then you're going to be stuck.
Yes.
And the statistic that you used about 60,000 thoughts a day, the extension of that fact is that 80% of that thinking is negative.
Yes.
95% is repetitive. So
Yeah.
if we don't understand that we come to a moment with a predisposition towards stopping, blocking, saying no for survival reasons, reasons that, are encoded into the nervous system from, you know, dating back 500 million years. If
Mm.
you don't know that that stuff is in you, then you think that, your manifestation stuff is not working.
Yeah.
But you got to understand the playing field that you're on, which is why having a relationship with your inner self and working on that and strengthening that and understanding yourself like you do your physical fitness is crucial to
Yeah.
living the life you want.
Mm. Yeah, and there's a quote that says something to the effect of that when you know yourself, you know God. And so that self-knowledge work. And so oftentimes we see, if we believe in God, we see God as being outside of ourselves. But the reality is, and what you're offering us to ponder, is that knowing self is knowing God,
That's
is
exactly.
knowing creator, is knowing universe. And because we are co-creating all the time, why not do it with a level of consciousness and to clear out whatever energetic blocks that we have that is actually working against the natural order of things, which is to be a beacon of love and peace and light and empowerment and gratitude and financial prosperity, essentially,
That's,
right? And so, as we get ready to wrap up, I would love for you to talk about over the 20 years that you have graciously worked one on one with clients. And I imagine many of those that have had trauma. Talk to us about the changes, some of the changes that you've seen. I know there's impossible to do that over the course of 20
yeah.
years and name it all. But thematically, what are some things that you've seen happen for trauma survivors in the midst of centering having an abundance mindset?
Yeah, I love that question because it's eternally gratifying
Mhm.
to witness what happens with people who say yes to themselves, right? And I have been doing this for 20 years. And one of the experiences that comes to mind right this moment happened. I just did a program called 30 Days to a More Thriving You. And this woman comes in, has been in an abusive relationship. Um, she has been in that relationship for well over a decade. And she didn't know anything about me or inner fitness. And I popped up in her feed.
Mm.
I popped up. She responded. She signed up for the 30-day challenge. And she said that within 7 days, she realized how little she had given and honored herself, given to and honored herself,
Mm.
that she had left herself so empty that she had allowed all of these externals to be her definition of herself. And that for the first time in forever, she was feeling like she mattered. That is the beginning, right? For us to, again, realize that we are innately creative, resilient, empowered to choose whole and worthy, which means we matter.
Yeah.
And I think that when we get seduced by pain, pain is seductive because there's a part of our makeup, I call it the surviving self, that is very familiar with struggle, with worry, doubt, and fear, with being on guard, with being in survival mode. And so that part is comfortable in
Mm.
the pain.
Yes.
The work is to develop an understanding of self that opens us to our higher ranges of ourselves.
Mhm.
Yes, the surviving self is there, but so is the thriving, and
Mm.
so is the infinite. And we have to open ourselves to these higher ranges. And so, I mean, I had someone come to our Wellness Wednesday.
Mhm.
She came to the Wellness Wednesday. Her trauma was that her younger sister, had died like 3 years earlier. And this woman's introduction to the community, of herself to the community, was that she would have preferred to die so that her sister could live, which means that there was an honoring of her sister that wasn't available to herself for herself.
Yeah.
And when we are given the aha moment, the space, sometimes a breath can just give you a space inside where you get to experience, or you get ignited even for a second by the more that you are,
Mm.
then you can get curious about it and go after it.
Yeah.
Trauma stands in our lives telling us the lie that what we have been is all that we are,
Mm.
instead of telling us the truth that what happened to us told us a lie and has us believing that that's all we are. when we are so much more.
Wow. And, to acknowledge that going from survivorship to thrivership is rooted in abundant mindset. And I think so often when we think about surviving from trauma, having traumatic experiences, we celebrate the fact that we survived it. And yet, there's no real celebration in that if we're living lower than what we could live. And if we are continuously re-traumatizing ourselves because we've become addicted
That's right.
to the pain, as you have so eloquently described, because that's all we know, right? And because people harm us and people can also heal us, if the people that have harmed us and we haven't done the healing, we're going to keep attracting people that harm us until we develop a better relationship with self so that we can attract more loving relationships and more loving things in abundance within all forms. And so I love that distinction that you just named, and that, we are truly all worthy of thriving if only we are willing to get out of our own way, if only we're willing to see that we are worthy. And I imagine that the two stories that you just shared, you've got thousands of others. And, I can certainly say as a trauma survivor myself, and also as a therapist and a coach, and the number of people that I've worked with over the years, and it doesn't take a lot. I love that you named 7 days, right? 7 days is all it took for this tremendous shift that will now lay the foundation for not only her to leave that relationship, but for her to also keep rising higher in whatever way she chooses to.
Exactly right. That's exactly
Wow.
right. And it's funny that you highlight the 7 days, because in the second story, that was on a Wednesday. That same woman came back, and she's now, a pillar in our society. I mean, in our community. 7 days later, she came back wanting to live.
Mm,
And the difference in them within those 7 days is there was a part of them that was willing to say, yes, I matter.
yes.
Yes, I
Um,
matter.
And that was why they showed up,
That's
right?
exactly
They
that.
showed up because there was a part of them that wanted something different. And sometimes all we have to do is just show up. And
Yes,
because God, universe, source, creator, is always guiding us, I say
yes,
often that we're always being divinely guided. If
yes.
only we are willing to see it and walk through the door over and over and over again. Tina, you have just gifted us so many ways. And I know that individuals are going to want to stay in touch with you, follow your work in all the ways that they can. So please share with us how they can go about doing that.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Across social media, I'm at Tina Lifford. Can go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. I have a book. Second book will be out early next year. The current book is The Little Book of Big Lies. It really does break down the work that I do well in that book. And my website is tinalifford.com or theinnerfitnessproject.com.
And we'll make sure that individuals have those links so that they can easily access you in all those ways, including purchasing your book and being out on the lookout for the book to follow that book. And thank you for all the ways that you just let your light shine. You have been an inspiration to me, and I just imagine countless other people. So thank you again for just being the highest version of you. I am just deeply grateful for you, truly.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you.
Yeah, so beautiful people, I want to thank you for tuning in today. I can only hope that the words imparted by myself and Tina have helped to create a greater pathway towards your healing, liberation, and overall abundance. If either one of us can help you on your journey, please don't hesitate to reach out. And if you haven't purchased Me Too, A Therapist Journey to Heal, Find Liberation and Joy, I invite you to do so. You can get your copy, including ebook version, through Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, and Ingram Spark. To learn more, you can visit damarawest.com. We'll leave you with the words of Lao Tzu. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. Until next time, beautiful people. Ashe.